Hello, hello, hello. I am so excited to be recording this new video series, new concept on my channel, which low-key is a podcast. But yeah, so today's episode is about the use of AI in creative work. And I just want to share my thoughts about that, kind of my stance. But also, I am going to talk about the pressure to succeed, especially in the environment the world that we live in, how fast-paced it is, etc., and also instant gratification. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. I'm really excited for this concept. I'm really excited to start talking more and expanding more, because I really love long form content over short form content. I often feel quite restrained with short form content, but now I feel like I can really expand. But yeah, I'm not really sure where this is going. It's just an idea and I'm just putting it out there, and very excited. But yeah, I do want to say that I am re-recording the introduction to the podcast, and because I've listened to the podcast, I know that there is a bit of mic ASMR and I apologize about that. I wasn't holding my mic properly, so you might be hearing the sounds of when I move my mic. So I'll show you what sound you'll probably be hearing. I don't know if you can hear it, but you might be hearing that. Well, it's not you might be. You will be hearing that throughout the podcast episode, and I apologize for that. Promise next time I will hold my mic properly. But yeah, I hope you enjoy the episode, and if you have anything to add, if you want to expand on anything, if you just want to share your thoughts, please feel free to do that in the comments below. But yeah, I really hope you have a great time listening to this, and enjoy. So I'm re-recording this bit, but it's because I didn't give enough context, and I felt like you wouldn't understand what I am starting the entire episode about, basically. But when I was recording this podcast, a few days prior, I saw a video, and I got it on my Instagram, and it was in a film festival, and a bunch of people screaming, and it looked like they were at a screening, and it was just a bunch of people screaming, and I couldn't understand what was going on. So I read in the comments, and I just saw that it was basically a film production that used AI. Although it wasn't AI for everything, but they still used AI. The issue was with one of the movie called Dance Macabre. Now, I don't know if I'm supposed to pronounce it in French or in English. I'm just pronouncing it in English. And the movie was an AI assisted production. And people were mad about that, rightfully so. And yesterday, when I was editing the podcast and I went on to read more about what happened, I saw that the creator, who his name is Hisco Helsing, talked about how he actually painted every frame, and he hired a lot of artists, and it was a human made production, except that for one aspect of the production he did use AI, because he was looking for a specific effect that he couldn't achieve. I don't know about that, but I feel like it is extremely, and I'm going to stop here because I'm pretty much going to say this over and over again in the podcast, but I just feel like it's extremely sad to have had, because it takes away all of the effort that you have done for your movie or your artwork. I feel like at this point, genuinely, when I was reading this whole article yesterday and watching a couple of videos explaining the situation, I was just saddened, because to me, it was almost like, here, we're just gonna shove AI onto your faces. We're just gonna mention AI every now and then, every day, in every aspect of life. It really is annoying. Also, I did not mention this in the podcast, but I am so irritated by the fact that I have to ask myself a bunch of questions, spend so much time analyzing a piece of art to figure out if it's AI or not. It actually really pisses me off. I hate that. I hate that I can't consume art the same way that I used to consume it. I hate that we have to ask. I hate that we live in a world where we have to ask that question constantly. And I feel like, when I think about this, I'm like, how sad, really, because we have always been, and when I say we, humans have always been very creative, and I've never really relied on AI So why is it that now we need it? We never needed it, and we don't need it, and we don't ever need it. I think it's just marketing. It's very well done marketing, because at the end of the day, AI is doesn't invent anything. It's just providing what you're feeding it with. It's providing you with what already exists, and what already exists was created by humans. It was made by humans. It wasn't made by AI. And so again, the power is within us. We have it. So I don't understand why AI is used for creativity. I genuinely don't understand it. But besides, and I get it. I understand that a lot of people are probably relying on AI because we live in a very fast-paced environment. And so, when you want to in a capitalistic environment, let's not forget about that. So when you have to produce something, you have a deadline. It's quick. The world moves fast. You need something for, I don't know, you need a movie for Christmas. I love Hallmark movies. But yeah, you need a movie for Christmas, and you just got the idea. Back then, it would take you at least a year and a half, and don't quote me on this. I am not very much aware of, I'm not very knowledgeable when it comes to movie production, but I think it would take 2 years. But now you don't need to wait for the script. AI can write the script for you. And it's very bad script. You don't need the editing as well. AI can do it for you. It can give you that kind of style that you want and so on. So you don't need to hire a bunch of people. You don't need to plan a lot of the logistics. There's just it's a lot of time and money saved. Obviously, I don't agree with it. I don't know if I've said it before, but let me reiterate my stance on AI. I do not like AI. And you'll probably, I think it's pretty clear. But yeah, so I just feel like using AI for creativity, yes, sure, it will save you money and it saves you time and so on. And sometimes you need to rush something. But that's sad. Why would you want to rush creativity? Why would you want to rush a creative project? And I feel like AI strips away the very important reflective work that happens when you're being creative. It strips away a connection with yourself, with your soul, because you're rushing the process. You're not allowing yourself to deal with your shortcomings, basically. Deal with when I'm making something, when I'm being creative about something, it takes me, like right now, actually, I'm just going to use that example. I've been working on something for, I think, the past 10 days. Yeah, 10 days, 2 weeks. But yeah, I've been working on something. And the way it has evolved, from that first, I'm going to say, not idea, but proper, final result to the actual final result today, drastically, different. And I love this final result. I love this final artwork, but I also love the initial artwork. But it takes time, and it takes time to reach the product that you're most happy with or you're most proud of. And I think using AI to speed that up strips you away from this whole thing. I have just spent 10 days thinking about this artwork, dreaming about this artwork. And yesterday, actually, I was working on it. Working on something completely different until midnight, I think. And then I was like, okay, girl, stop it. It's time to go to sleep. And then I went to bed and I was working on it still because I just got an idea. And so obviously I grabbed my iPad, opened Procreate, and I just started jotting down, just drawing, basically, just doing whatever it is that I wanted to do, whatever idea I got. And today I printed it out, And I'm so happy with how it looks, and it's so beautiful. I'm genuinely so happy with how it looks. I'll share it eventually in due time. But that whole entire thing, like sitting with that idea and not rushing myself, is what made me reach that. And so I started playing around with it. And I feel like that genuinely is such an important, part of the process, because it really brings me closer to myself, but also brings me such a, like, it allows me to reflect. It allows me to learn things. It allows me to discover about myself. It's genuinely a beautiful process of reflection, of retrospection, of just just connecting and talking with my soul, like the depth of who I am. And I wouldn't replace this process with anything else, even if it saves time, even if I don't even think that's an actual good how do we say it, like a pro. Like, I don't think saving time isn't always a good thing. And again, I understand that we, time is money, etc. We live in a capitalistic world, and so on and on. And this is why people rely on AI or just solutions that will, speed up the process. But you're wasting and you're losing, you're losing so much of what makes us human. Creativity is beautiful. It's so beautiful to sit with yourself and to write something, to draw something. There's so much beauty in sitting with yourself in front of a blank page, even if it's stressful. I know how anxiety inducing it can be to just look at a blank canvas or a blank page if you're a writer, or just like an empty space and not knowing where to start. But that work, and I'm gonna get very passionate but I love creating. I love being creative, and for me, that work is genuinely so rewarding. Let me mute my phone. Finding something to, like, sitting with myself and reflecting. And right now, I don't know why, but I'm thinking about my dissertation, which is very random. But I think, to me, dissertation was also a creative work, and something I cherish a lot, because I was just telling myself right now, like, I was just thinking about it, how, like, I remember that first blank page, because that was so stressful. I remember that first blank page, and I had no idea how to start. I was so overwhelmed to writing. I can't remember how many pages I write, but to writing, I think I wrote over 15k words. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But yeah, anyway. And so, basically, I wrote what was required, which should be between 15k and 20k words, maybe. Anyway. And so, to writing that amount, it's a process. And it was a beautiful process, because I really got to learn so much about myself, learn about my sabotaging tendencies. Yes, I'm planning on making a podcast episode on that, because oh girl, don't even get me started on that. But I am healing from those tendencies. But yeah, it is unfortunately, it was part of my creative work and just my work in general for a while. And I think right now I'm just like distancing myself from that, because it's not serving me. But anyway, so that process, yes, it was painful in the beginning. And I remember for, I think, a week, I did not know how to start my dissertation. I was just confused. But that process of problem solving, trying to figure out what would help me to actually get a few words in, all the motivation that I found, all the things where I was like, I remember there was the summer I turned pretty at that time, and I was telling myself, if I write 5k, like 5,000 words, you can watch one episode of The Summer I Turned Pretty. And mind you, I wanted to watch The Summer I Turned Pretty when I was done with my dissertation, so in September. But I think at the 5th episode, when they released the 5th episode, so 5 weeks in to the release, I told myself, you know what, I can watch 1 or 2 episodes. But yeah, so I did, because it was, a little bit of a reward for my work. And yeah, that work, like, genuinely, when I think about my dissertation or any other creative, projects or work I've partaken, I always feel like there's so much learning at the end of, during the process, obviously, but also when I'm done with it, there's so much reflection that happens. And I realize how much I've learned from that experience. If I had used AI for any of my creative projects, I wouldn't be who I am today, basically, because it would strip me from my humanity. Like, it would strip me from who I am in my core. It would strip me from my soul. It would strip me from my emotions. It would strip me from everything. I would literally be a walking zombie. And that's just how I view it. That's just how I see it. I know a lot of people use AI for their creativity, but that's why I'm making this podcast, because I don't agree with it. And yeah, I just feel like it would strip me from so much important, therapeutic, eye-opening work. And that's not something that I want to sacrifice, and that's also not something I think anyone should sacrifice. I did talk a lot about feelings and everything, and the process and learning, and everything, the emotional part of creating. But there's also obviously a cognitive part, and I do think that, and it's just not that I think, I know there are studies, because that was my dissertation. My dissertation wasn't about AI, but it was about it was a comparative study between those who craft and those who don't craft, and it was a comparative study of cognition, well-being, loneliness, and flow state. And I've read a lot of papers about cognition and creativity, and obviously it is quite known that creativity does help with cognition. Depending on what type of creative activity you partake in, it will help different aspects of cognition. So when you use AI, you're stripping yourself away from not only the emotional aspect of creativity, but also the beneficial cognitive aspect of creativity. But also it's been a known thing that doing things with your hands is extremely helpful for your cognition. And I feel like the reason why also a lot of people are inclined to use AI, besides, the capitalistic world that we live in and how fast-paced it is and so on, I do feel like it also comes from pressure to achieve your dreams, especially in the world that we live in. I'm going to keep saying this, but really, when you're surrounded by, like, when you're consuming social media on a daily basis, and also if your work is on social media, you're also consuming even more of that, and just like, you're bathing in that, like, creating content, doing things, putting your work, etc., and etc. Anyway, and so it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure, and I think a lot about this, because I also talked to this about my parents, where they were like, it's just, you guys are really, like, so stressed out, and they don't necessarily understand, because they're like, you're still young. Why do you have all these, like, pressures on yourself? And I'm like, I know I'm technically still young, but I feel like they grew up in a different environment where they had limited choice on what they could, study or work in, or, what kind of career they would have. I could literally count the types of career back then that would, the go-to careers. And it was valid even when I was like when I was a teenager, basically. I do remember in my time, wow. I do remember when I was a teen, oftentimes I would hear the choices, even in like orientation, career orientation at school. It was pretty much just engineering, architecture, interior design. That's it. Literally, that's it. Those were the choices. But I've had this idea of like creating content and building something for myself since I was really young. And I started at the age of 14 because I was consuming that. I was on YouTube. I was seeing these girls that were my age doing things, just building things for themselves. The aspiration is that you get to do something for yourself, and it's not necessarily a traditional path because not everyone wants one. And so to me, that genuinely spoke to me as a kid, and I just knew that there were so much more possibilities than what adults are showing me. But now I think that kids have it even more intensely because a lot of the new generation, at least most of Gen Z, are born in a very tech 24/7 connected world, basically. And so you grow up consuming so much of everyone. And a lot of times I think about my childhood, and even now, like when I'm picturing my childhood, it's very calm. It's very, very calm. And I vividly remember, like right now I'm vividly remembering the moments where I was bored and I was just sitting with that boredom because it was part of life. Whereas now if I'm bored, I have to fight myself not to pick up my phone and doom scroll or do something on my phone. I just have to like, and sometimes not just not do anything, like literally just sit with my boredom. There's nothing wrong with that, but I feel like I have lost the art of boredom. And last year when I went to London, and I decided that, since I'm in London and I'm basically going to be distracted by being a tourist. I love being a tourist. Oh my god, can this be my full-time job? I love being a tourist. And so basically I was just I was like, I'm gonna be distracted. I have so much things to see, so I will have no time for my phone. So this is the best time to basically just log out of my apps and not use my phone. I kept WhatsApp for communication, and then YouTube because I don't use YouTube in a toxic way. I have a really good relationship with how I consume YouTube, so I was like, I'll keep YouTube. And when I tell you that feeling that I was just talking about, I felt it at that time when I removed my my social medias, basically when I logged out of literally everything. I felt it, and the days were longer, and yes, it was summer, so the days were longer, but no, genuinely I did feel like the days were longer. And when I would come back to the hotel, I just felt tired, like I just wanted to go sleep. There was it almost felt like everything fell into place, like the overthinking that I was struggling with, the anxiety that I was struggling with. I'd wake up and I feel anxious. I didn't have that. So I do think that the reason why I felt that way is because of my the phone. I removed my phone, literally. I was also not 24/7 connected, in the sense, 24/7 available, in the sense where I was taking the time to process what I was seeing. And I love the excitement that I get to share what I see and what I, my photos and everything with friends and my family. But I think what I learned, or at least tried to, reclaim last year after London and during London, is to process things on my own, to give myself the time to process things. And I also started my commonplaces notebook at that time, and oh my god, I need an entire podcast episode for my commonplaces notebook, so I'm not going to talk so much about it, but just having that was really nice, because if I wanted to jot down an idea or just do something, I would use that instead of my phone. And that was beautiful, because it was really going back to the basics and going back to the bare minimum, I'm gonna say. But yeah, so I do understand just this belief or idea that kind of has been, I'm gonna say, been normalized in the past years of like having to create things fast. But yeah, so I just wanted to end this by saying that I want you to remember that the dream is in the journey. And a lot of the times people say that, you know, the joy and everything is in the process, not the final destination. And I agree. The dream is in the journey. You are living your dream when you're working towards your dream. And so yeah, so it's in that process. And you know, I just remembered, what movie was it that took 10 years to make? Well, there were so many movies, but I think it was a Korean show and a Korean movie, and I forgot the name, both names. But there were a lot of, pretty sure there were a lot of arts and a lot of things that took time to come to life, took time to, you know, find their success. And it was, you know, the right time for them to bloom. It was the right time for them, for people to consume that art. And yeah, I want you to remember that. I always remember that. I always keep that in mind. I don't know if you know about the theory of the 10-year celebrity, but basically there's this theory that it takes 10 years for someone to become a celebrity. But they're already a celebrity. It just takes 10 years for people to actually, for a lot of people basically, to recognize them. And sometimes it feels like overnight fame, but it's actually 10 years in the making. And one of the biggest example today is Zara Larsson. I remember listening to Zara Larsson a long time ago, but it wasn't until this year that I started hearing more about her and that I started seeing more about her. And I think she said it even in her speech as well. I think she mentioned that, where it took a while to get here. It took a lot of training, a lot of, you know, practice, a lot of things. And so you look at Zara and you're like, wow, like, mashallah, that girl, just she's amazing. She really is a great performer. And it feels like, for someone who might not know her background or her story or how far she's come, it seems like it's overnight fame. It seems like, oh, so easy. Like, she literally, you know, the whole dolphin meme thing, and then boom, here she is. But it actually was a lot longer than that. And yeah, I just want you to remember that, because I always remind myself of that it takes time, and when it's the right time, it's going to happen. And you know, I just have to keep on trusting and believing myself, and not strip myself from a beautiful connection that I can have with my art to speed up the process, because it really isn't going to serve me it's not going to serve me at all. It's not going to help me achieve anything, really, because it's just not. Anyway, I literally have 10 minutes to make hot chocolate because my friend is coming. But yeah, so hot chocolate in this heat, don't ask me. It's actually not hot. It's a good weather, and we're having hot chocolate outside, which is really nice, but I'm making it. So anyway, I'm going to end this podcast episode here, and I don't know if I've said everything that I wanted to say, but anyway, so I am gonna stop the podcast now, and see you in the next one. And I hope you enjoyed this yapping session. But yeah, see you, and crafting session. But yeah, bye bye, take care.